Oh, welcome to another episode of The Growth Compass. Shout out to our sponsor senders. If you want to do email deliverability correctly, you hit the link in the description. Without them, it would not be possible to interview awesome people doing awesome things like Sherry. Welcome.
Hi, Blake. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here.
Eh, Of course, I am really excited to talk about your experience building what you're building, doing what you're doing. And if nobody out there listening at the moment knows what you're doing, if you could just give a brief introduction of yourself and what you're building.
I would love to. Thank you so much. So, I am a 25-year veteran of marketing and communications and demand generation, mostly in startups or what I like to call startups with legs. But my recent endeavor is really about building a space for leaders, especially those who are caregivers, to realize that there can be balance and harmony in their life, that there's not a dual identity. The things that they learn at the bedside are the very same things that they can learn in the boardroom or use in the boardroom, and vice versa. So I'm actually helping leaders, writing a book, working on all of the content and materials that go along with that, and trying to help them because I've been a caregiver for 11 years to my husband, who is a walking, talking miracle. And during that time frame, I went from a marketing manager to a chief marketing officer. And so you can do both. But it requires that you put in some balance and some guardrails to help you so that you can make sure that you do not become a burnout in any area because you're needed in all of them.
So, how long has it been that you fully made the transition?
It has been since about November of last year. So it's fairly new.
Oh, congrats. I think
Thanks.
that's awesome. But before we get into your mission and what you're doing, because I think the language around it, all the concepts that I don't see it being spoken about in a way that you're approaching it. So I'm really interested in your plans, your vision, things like this. To give a little context to that story, if we could just focus on the 25 years, startups, legs, things like this, like what is this the first company that you started technically? I mean, you've worked with very early stage. Like can you give a little bit of a summary about your background?
Absolutely. So, one of my very first marketing opportunities was with a CEO that he and I started a company. We created a concept that we all know now as Internet of Things, but this was back in 1998. So, this was
Okay.
long before Internet of Things was a thing. And we built that from the ground up. I helped him raise 20 million in venture capital. We also completed our S1 with Goldman Sachs. And so I've seen what that growth takes, a toll on both your person plus your business plus because you're basically creating a baby at that point in time when you're in the trenches doing that. Unfortunately, timing also plays into those things. So for those founders who are raising money and getting their IPOs and doing all those kinds of things, our IPO was scheduled for 2 days after the market crashed.
Oh my goodness.
So nothing we could do. We got shelved for a while. We stayed on the books for a while, and then finally, about 2 years later, I was like, I've got to go. I got to go find a job. So, I've taken that experience from that very first organization that I worked for, and I've now applied the things that I learned, right? The on the job training that I got that they don't teach you when you're getting a marketing degree from college. And I've applied that to other startups. And then as demand generation became a thing, I also learned how to do that. So I went from marketing communications to really focusing on revenue generation and pipeline creation for sales organizations. And most of those organizations that I'd worked for, I've been in a bootstrapped organization that was about 3 million in revenue. We raised 37.5 million in PE funding, and they're now we doubled the revenue in about 9 months, putting the practices into place that I had for demand generation. And then I've been in organizations that are 20 million, 50 million in ARR and helping them grow to the next level to get to 100 million. So I've been in a little bit of all of them. That's why I call them startups or startups with legs, because a lot of $20 million organizations don't really have a fully formed marketing function. They've
Hmm.
been too busy building the business and trying to get processes in place, and marketing is usually one of the last things that comes under the fold.
Well, so you read my mind a little bit because that first experience that you spoke to about the IPO, getting shelved, market crash, things like this. The first thing that I'll focus on is you said you applied the things that you learned, stuff like that. But that is an incredible, not only just building a company from the startup, but having such a crazy, black swan event, impact, like, recovering from that experience. So, what is it that you learned from that experience that you apply today
Mhm.
in how you navigate building your current business?
So I have three takeaways that I pretty much have started pulling together in my new venture that have
Okay.
all come from these experiences in my lifetime, right? Both from working in startups and being a caregiver. And the first one is that clarity is capacity. The reality is the clearer you make the destination for your team, for your organization, for your prospects, the more capacity you get back for your leadership team. So capacity comes from clarity. So that's the first one that I've learned. And that's really important in startups because ambiguity is a huge thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not going to change, but you have to, as a leader in those environments, find a way to speak clearly to your team and to your prospects. That's mission number one. Number two is that harmony isn't a luxury. It's actually a survival skill, especially in those circumstances, because you're not going to guarantee the outcome. You're not going to guarantee hypergrowth. You're not going to guarantee that you're going to get the exit that you're looking for and have the golden parachute that you walk out on. So you have to find a way that when those waves are high and there is instability and you've got to find a way to keep the boat steady, that comes from harmony. And it's not about making everything pleasant for everybody. It's actually just creating an environment where people and leaders can actually survive and last. Because sometimes that ambiguity can be uh, exhausting, right? And then the third is that you can't lead the crew if you've been tossed overboard. Another
Mm.
way to look at that in my caregiving world is dead EMTs don't do anybody any good. So leaders need to take care of themselves. Founders, especially when you're building a company, need to take care of yourself. It's not something that you can afford to give up. You have to find a way to take care of you because if you don't do that, you can't take care of anybody else.
Is there awesome? I think those three things are really cool. I really resonate with the first one about clarity, and the second one I'm curious about. How is it? So when you speak about harmony, how is it that you can be clear, I guess, about what that looks like, what that means, if there needs to be, if you've established it or if it needs to be worked on, how to maintain it, things like this.
Mm-hmm. So there was one organization that I worked in a 6 month period. I had in a 6 month period, I'd had three CEOs and three CMOs. Now, just wrap your head around that. In one 6 month period, that many leaders change in my direct world, right?
Yeah.
Talk about instability, talk about the boat, trying to keep the boat afloat, right? That's a huge amount of change management that has to happen. I had a team. They weren't very big because we'd let go of 12 people in the marketing team in the
Oh my god.
process. So I didn't have a very big team, but I had very big goals. And they didn't change just because those waves were crashing on the boat and we were trying to figure out which way is up and how do we stay afloat. So as a leader, I literally had to get up every morning and find a way to be incredibly clear with my team about what they needed to get done that day. Don't
Hmm.
look at the entire ocean. Just what do we have to do today? We need to move the needle today. What are we going to focus on? And then as things started to sort of kind of calm down a little bit, then we could look at what do we need to do this week. And then we could look at what do we need to do this month. And then we needed to start looking ahead at what can we do this quarter and next quarter and the quarter after, and really start being proactive instead of reactive. So that's how you tie those together, right? And that required me being centered and balanced about what needed to be done. And it also needed me to find the clarity for the day or the week
Hmm.
or the month.
Okay, okay, so I want to ask a question, or maybe a couple first to set up additional questions about that, because I'm very interested in how, since you okay, so your experiences in such high growth environments. Let's just focus again to set up the next question. Let's just focus on like tactically, you, you know, what strategies, what texts, like were you doing email, were you doing call, like mark, how did marketing come, like, can you just speak to, and you can focus on just the last company that you were at, what was your approach to growth as far as new customer acquisition, retention, whatever those metrics were. um yeah, for now.
So in the last 4 organizations that I've been in, I walked in where sales and marketing didn't talk to each other,
Mm,
oftentimes had redundant systems in place because they didn't trust each other and they didn't believe the data or anything else, or there just flat out wasn't any kind of tech stack at all, right? So the first part of coming in and building that clarity and that harmony that's required, right, in order to be able to be a leader, I came in and evaluated the systems. I wasn't as worried about the people. And I came in and I evaluated how can I best speak to sales and become an advocate for what they're trying to do instead of trying to protect marketing and what marketing was doing only,
mm,
right? So check the tech stack, build bridges to sales, and then start putting into practice basic marketing tactics, things that either A, didn't exist or weren't working because the analytics weren't being looked at. So that was everything from build a nurture sequence to make sure that the website can accept lead gen um, methodologies, right? Because sometimes those websites didn't even have that capability built in.
wow.
And then it also meant, looking at how do we bring the BDRs in. Most of the time we brought BDRs under marketing so that they reported to the same person who was bringing in the leads and they were qualifying the leads. And then we would only turn over sales qualified leads to sales. And the BDRs only got paid
Interesting.
when the sales team actually had an opportunity to follow up on that they were willing to take and run with. Because
Mm.
marketing should be doing all that warming up, communication, all of those things. And sales should be working on closing deals. And so when we brought the BDRs under marketing, now you've eliminated friction between sales and marketing immediately because marketing isn't going, hey, why aren't you following up on these leads that I sent you? And sales isn't going, why are you sending me all of these leads that I have to keep following up on that aren't responding?
Wow. Yeah.
The
Interesting.
BDRs are doing all that for them. SDRs, ADRs, you pick the acronym of the day,
Sure.
right? But
Okay.
but those are the things that I would start with in the organization is making sure that you have the infrastructure you need to track the data. Make sure you start building campaigns that and test them and make sure that they're actually being effective in driving lead gen and pipeline. Bring the BDRs in and let them do the follow up. And then make sure that you're only turning over qualified things to sales so that they can actually start closing deals.
Are you partial to any specific kinds, specific platforms, specific tools?
I love HubSpot. I have always been a HubSpot girl, so to speak,
Mm.
back before they were even as big as they are now. Especially if you're in a founder situation or you're just growing, you're just starting, it's really easy to get in and start building, and it's all in one system. So you can have your CRM, your marketing automation, you can do lead scoring, you can tie your website to it. integrates really well with WordPress, or you can do it inside of HubSpot. So it's an easy tool. Like if you're looking for just something that's sort of your single source of truth, it's really nice. If you're a little more mature, having Salesforce as your CRM and doing your reporting out of Salesforce, and your sales team is utilizing it for sales stages and actually doing funnel evaluations, I think that's a great setup. You have marketing doing it through HubSpot, and then you have that transition over to Salesforce. So I think those two are really good. If you're looking at ABM platforms and intent, I love Sixth Sense. It's one of the ones I've used. I've used others, but it's been my favorite and the easiest to get used to, especially if you're getting into it for the first time. And then there's a ton of AI tools now, right? So there's
Yeah.
lots and lots of the tools that you use have AI built into it now. So there's a lot of things that can help eliminate redundancy in marketing. If you are willing to utilize the tools, the tools aren't going to replace marketing because they're only as good as the information that it gets from you.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a great story about developing an ICP with a small business, and he wanted to create his ICP using an AI tool, right? Just a chat bot. And he said, let's just get on a call and I want to do it live. Like I want to share my screen. I want to do it live. I said, great. Well, I already knew the company. I'd already done the work myself the night before to create an ICP, create content topics for him, and build out a whole content plan for him. And so he gets on the call with me, starts showing me on the screen. We start talking through it. I let him start trying to figure out how to prompt the chat bot in order to get what he was looking for. It comes back with results, and he's like, I don't know, this doesn't. I said, well, that doesn't really look right to me. What do you think? And he's like, no, it's not really on the mark. And I was like, okay, well, let me show you what I did when I went through this process. And so I pull up my screen and I start sharing it. And he was like, oh my gosh, yes. Oh, yes. See, that's where, yes, that, and that's, I got him nodding, right? And he's like, yes, that's exactly what I needed. So I would encourage marketers not to be freaked out by the tools, because the reality is people are going to find out that they're not getting the good results, the great results that they want, unless they have the strategy and the uh, execution capability that marketers have. So use the tools, learn how to make them work for you, show people how you can make them better, and don't be afraid that you're going to be replaced.
So okay, so we've covered the tool, so we've covered the tool layer, and then quickly I wanted to get back to something you touched on initially when you first come into a company, and you say that they have to cover the basics. If you could just again, outline what those absolute minimums are, those absolute basics of a functioning sales, marketing, growth arm
Mm-hmm.
of a company.
So the absolute musts, you need some sort of marketing automation, right? Figure out what tool works best for you. HubSpot has a really great plan for if you're just getting in the market and you're just figuring it out. They can grow and scale with you. And I think it's crucial. It helps keep your brand on point. It will help you track your deals, your leads, your life cycle stages, all of those things. I think it's a fantastic tool personally. So I think you have to have that. If you're not going to use it for your CRM, you definitely need a CRM. You have to have it. Salesforce is great. Not every founder can afford it at the moment,
Yeah.
right? But it is a great tool. But I would not suggest using it as your go-to for even the marketing stuff. They're still figuring that out, in my opinion.
Got it. Okay.
And then I think you need to look at the AI tools that can help you do some of the redundant stuff and help you with brainstorming, and a nice to have is an ABM platform.
Okay.
But that's a nice to have. I think you've got to get the basics. You got to get some sales. You got to get your marketing programs launched. And then eventually you need to start really looking at ABM and how do you do one to one and one to few as opposed to one to many, right?
Okay. Got it. So that we have a tool layer. Now we have a foundation layer, and I think this is perfect timing. Now we go back to the framework that you outlined. So the question that I wanted to ask, that I appreciate you helping me set up, is, let's say you walk into and if you haven't, experienced yourself, I mean, that would be awesome for you to share. But let's say that they have, a stack of tools that you look at and you say, this is awesome, and they have the tools structured in a way where they're all speaking to each other in a way that's optimized. They have distribution of responsibilities, everything's going great. Where does the lack of clarity, of harmony, like these steps in your framework, where does that impact, if you have those two, the tool layer and the strategy layer? How does that get in and create inefficiencies? um, how does the framework that you put together apply to a business that's looking at their growth arm, and they say, wow, we're doing everything we can to do it right, but I don't understand what's not working.
So I think at that point, you really need to look at what are the activities that you're doing, because just because you're doing activities doesn't mean they're necessarily the right ones. And just because you're have marketing programs out there, maybe you've missed the mark on your ICP. Maybe you're targeting the wrong people. Maybe it's a buying group that requires being marketed to, not just a single individual person, and you aren't accounting for those influencers that may be making your sales cycles fall flat. I think that's when you start looking at A/B testing. That's when you start looking at, are we targeting the right people? And when you find success, like, go back and look at why you won a deal with somebody. What was the yes that you got from them? Why did they choose you over, your competitor A, B, or C? Go back and ask them, because maybe your messaging's off, or maybe you're targeting the wrong person, or like, those are when you start sitting down and looking strategically at what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Well, so have you seen examples in the past of situations where maybe the decision making, maybe the management structure wasn't looking at things as strategically as you're saying, and this approach that you're taking as far as caregiving, and the concept of caregiving and how it can relate to leadership and management, how that could have made for a better situation in the past than maybe it ended up.
Yep. So part of what caregiving has told me is that you should lead with empathy. It's a huge part of what you do as a leader. And when you are trying to solve challenges and things are not going the way you want them to go, if you look at the situation and the problem through the lens of empathy, you're going to have a different perspective than you would if you're just looking at, there's a problem, I need to fix it, and I need a quick fix. Find out if there's something really going on. Maybe somebody's not at 100% at the job because they have something major going on at home, right?
Hmm.
Or maybe your marketing team is struggling because they're not getting feedback from sales or customer support. And that feedback is what could be fueling the next wave of success for marketing. And maybe they're not getting that. Listen to your team, find out what's going on, have an open mind before you start trying to apply uh, solutions to the problem. Really listen and navigate about where those teams are and see where the common threads are, because you may find it's not just a marketing problem. Maybe it's a sales and marketing problem. Maybe it's a customer support product marketing problem. Listen to your teams, and listen with an ear that's willing to be open-minded. Don't go in assuming you know the answer. And I think too often leaders go in assuming, hey, I'm going to do this and it's going to fix
Hmm.
the problem. And they never even talk to anybody about it.
How much of the experience that we've ran through, that I appreciate you giving so many insights about, how in what way has it impacted the way that you've chosen to navigate this business, as far as messaging, marketing, growth, development of your own product, things like this?
Obviously it's impacted my life. It's changed who I am and the direction, right? I've pivoted, taking the time to invest in myself. And I have had to apply all of these things. And half the time it's to myself, right? You
Uh-huh.
can't do everything all the time. You can't assume that, just because you do it really well elsewhere, that you can do it as easily for yourself. That's something that's been a hard lesson for me to learn. I'm a great marketer. I understand how to target and message and all of that. But when you're marketing yourself or your own product or your own solution, and it's a vulnerable place too, because of the sensitive topic and nature of what you do, that's a little bit different, right, than selling a B2B SaaS solution.
Hmm.
So I've had to balance my own self, step into all of these things that we've talked about for me, so that I can keep moving the ship forward and getting out there and meeting the right people and engaging with the right people and putting into practice, being very clear, what is it that you need to do today? Being
Hmm.
very sure that you're taking care of yourself and not just trying to do all the things. Because when you are a founder and an owner, you are doing all the things,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so you have to make sure you take a few moments and find a way to center yourself, ground yourself, and focus on what needs to be done today. And when things aren't going right, it's okay. It's okay to
Hmm.
say, as long as I'm failing forward, it's not failing. So give yourself a little grace.
Well, two of my favorite questions to ask is at the moment, with where you're at in your own journey, growing this business. What is the biggest hurdle that you're facing right now, and how does it also present an opportunity?
Mm, wow, it's a great question. I think for me, the biggest hurdle is getting the product finished. The
Mm.
product for me is finishing the book.
Mm.
Sitting down to writing the book and finishing that so that I can have the product to sell, right, is is the biggest challenge for me right now. Again, that requires some vulnerability. It requires, you know, a lot of thought and process into what do you want to put in there and how is it going to really benefit someone else, because I truly believe that anything I do, it should have a so what, why, and who cares aspect to it, right? So that's the biggest hurdle. And at the same time, that is the very thing that's helping me get speaking opportunities and is opening doors for me to meeting leaders who have lived this life, didn't know how to step into the next level of leadership. Uh, it's opened doors because I've been vulnerable to say, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is where I am, and I'm not finished, but I'm interested in talking to people, and people are willing to open their doors and their
Mm.
hearts and their conversations to learning more and introducing me to the right people.
Well, I guess along the same answer, and I'm interested in how uh, you approach this, but with all of this in front of you, everything that you've worked on, what inspires you?
I am a huge faith based person. So I truly believe that I'm doing the thing that is the purpose that I have for my life, and that nothing is wasted. And
Mm.
all of the things that I'm doing now are because of the circumstances that I've been in the past, from both a marketing perspective, from business, the things I've learned at the bedside apply to the boardroom and vice versa. And now it's all coming together. And that makes me want to get up every day and get it done and do it faster. My biggest thing is that I want to do it now. I want it all done
Mm.
now.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there's a process that you have to go through to get to that point. But that's what motivates me. That's what gets me up every day, because I know there's people out there who need to know that, one, you can do it. You can rise in your leadership skills and still have the challenging circumstances of being a caregiver, whether that's for your spouse, your children, your parents, whomever, right, is in your life, that it's not wasted. None of it is wasted. And it can all be useful.
Well, thank you for continuing to push through that process despite the pressure of wanting to do it now. I think it's really cool what you're building. I think you're doing meaningful work, so I appreciate that. If anybody else was inspired to either follow along or get in touch, what's the best way to do that?
Obviously, I'm on all the socials, right? So you can connect to me on LinkedIn. I have a website. It's theharmonyhero.com. All of the socials are there. We're at The Harmony Hero. So, yeah, feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Well, Sherry, thank you so much for sharing your story, sharing some very specific tactics, and I'm excited to stay in touch to see where you go.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to chat with you.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Well, I'll see you on the next one.
All right.
Bye.